What's going on, you guys? So it's a couple of days later. Weather's a little warmer. It's cold, but it's a little warmer. But we got some, good weather, so we could continue the build. So I want to make a note for those who are doing this. Obviously, you got to make sure you label everything and make sure you can put everything back on the way you removed it from the car initially. So if you guys are aware or not aware, this rocker arm assembly here has an eye on top, so this means this goes on the intake side, and then the portion that doesn't have anything like this one goes on the exhaust side. So just make sure that when you remove stuff from the car, you either place it down and label it with a piece of paper or something, so you make sure that everything goes in the right order. These short ones, from what I understand, go on the top side, and these long ones go on the bottom side. So you want to make sure you don't mix up anything and you cause a catastrophe, and you just basically put everything together for nothing. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm also going to pour a little bit of oil on this because I had cleaned them, remove any of the old antifreeze on oil that was on top of this. So I want to put it on dry, so I'm going to put a little bit of oil and basically just put the push rods in and torque everything down, and then we could go ahead and put the valve covers on, the spark plugs and all that, and hopefully we could fill up the system and get it fired up. So we'll see how everything goes and we'll go from there.
What do you want from me? Are you trying to get me back or just bad memories? What do you want from me? You can buy my love with all your treasuries. Oh, you think that you're alright, and you think that you care. Another day, another fight. Baby can't hurt me, but I don't give a damn. I don't have to please no one, and I ain't gonna change, ain't gonna change. Ain't gonna change, ain't gonna change. Ain't gonna change, ain't gonna look at me. Look at me. What do you want from me? Are you trying to get me back or just bad memories? What do you want from me? You can buy my love with all your treasuries. Oh, you think that you're alright, and you think that you care. Another day, another fight. Baby can't hurt me, but I don't give a damn. I don't have to please no one, and I ain't gonna change, ain't gonna change. Ain't gonna change, ain't gonna. Ain't gonna change, ain't gonna change. Ain't gonna change, ain't gonna change. You better look at me. Ain't gonna change, ain't gonna change. I said you better look at me. Ain't gonna change, ain't gonna change. Ain't gonna change, ain't gonna look at me. Look at me. Look at me.
Alright, you guys, so we pretty much installed the valve covers, the rocker arms. We torqued down the bolts to the rocker arms, installed the valve covers, the spark plugs, and the coils. And then I got this, I guess you want to call it a shower towel over the motor, because we're going to install, not tomorrow because it looks like it's going to rain tomorrow, but the next day we're going to install the intake manifold, and we're going to start connecting all the electrical connections. We also have to add we also have to bolt up the exhaust underneath, just tying the bolts. We also have to add some transmission fluid to the transmission, because I drained the transmission, changed the transmission filter and the fluid, and we also have to add brake fluid, and then check all the connections and then continue the rest. So we still have a little bit more work. Hopefully by Friday or Saturday we should have this fired up. So I'm gonna just call it a night because it is late. It's 9 o'clock, so I gotta go to work tomorrow. So I'm gonna close everything up, get some sleep, and I'll catch you guys in I'll catch you guys in a few days. What's going on, you guys? So I'm in the garage. So before I end the video, I just want to show you guys that pretty much everything that I had laid out in the garage is obviously installed on the vehicle, and the last thing we have to do is obviously install this big intake manifold, plug all the connections to it, and then also install the radiator hoses, the 180-degree thermostat housing, the 6.1 liter Hemi valve cover decals, whatever the crap you want to call it, the drive belt or the engine belt, and the air intake. And then we also have to add some transmission fluid, add brake fluid, change the power steering line, be able to bolt the power steering onto the head now, and be able to crack it loose, because before I couldn't just hold the power steering pump and try to break the line loose. It's just too tight and I don't have enough torque to break it loose by hand. So I'm going to attach it and then break it loose, and then we're pretty much going to add some antifreeze and just check every connection, and also do the bolts underneath for the exhaust manifold. So we have a little bit of stuff to do. We're not going to be able to work on it tomorrow because supposedly it's going to rain. So maybe on Thursday or Friday, and hopefully by Saturday we can have the car fired up and ready to go. And hopefully we don't have any issues and the car is ready to drive. That would suck if we have some issue. But other than that, I think we should be fine. So with that being said, guys, I'm going to catch you guys in a couple of days. I got to get to sleep. So I'll see you guys in a few days.
extra wide, dripping candy. Hold it. In the slab game,
I'm LeBron James.
Michael Jordan, 6 slabs, bit 6 rain. Belts and buckles on the back like a fashion statement. LED Cadillac emblem clean, ain't bow tie stripe whiter than the phone cup. Much
What's going on, you guys? It's your boy Evan, and you know what's up tonight. So hopefully you guys have reached the end of the video, and I want to give you guys a big thank you for sticking around and watching the entire video. Now I just want to go over some information that may be crucial, you may find useful, or just want to know exactly what I did throughout the entire video. So we're going to get it right into it. First thing I want to bring to your attention are the push rods. If you guys noticed, when you're removing or installing push rods, you have different size push rod lengths. And in my case, we had shorter ones and longer ones. The shorter ones went on the top and the longer ones went on the bottom. When you're installing them, you want to make sure and you know which holes the shorter ones go for and which ones go for the longer ones. So do not confuse those. There's a certain there's specific holes to which the shorter ones go in and which ones the longer ones go in. So looking at the push rod, it's basically a long tube, a circular tube, and you have at the edge or the ends basically a bowl and a hole in the middle, and that's to allow for oil to travel down and lubricate the lifter. So when you're installing the push rods back into the vehicle, you want to make sure you put it through the hole and you push it far down enough to where you feel the actual ends of the push rod seat on the top side of the lifter. If you ever have a lifter in your hand, you'll notice that you have the roller bearing on the bottom, which turns, and then you'll notice that the top side has an opening or a groove or indentation where the push rod's supposed to sit. So when you're installing these push rods through the head, you'll feel actually by hand the actual push rod sit properly on the top side of the lifter. So you want to make a note of that, and you want to be aware when you're installing the push rods that they're actually seated on the lifter itself. Now with the rocker arm assembly, in my case, when I removed them, I had an indentation or a marking or some sign that we knew that the rocker arm assembly went on the intake side and the other one went on the exhaust side. So in my case, we had an I, which meant the intake side goes on the top and the one without it went on the bottom. So in your case, you may have some sort of markings or indentation or something that's going to tell you that this rock arm assembly goes on the intake side, the other one goes on the exhaust. If you do not, you're going to have to obviously have taken pictures or videos, or maybe you may get lucky and you may find a video online that shows you which one goes to which side of the head, whether it's on the top side of the head or on the bottom side. In my case, I had that, so we were good. But when you're installing that rock arm assembly, you want to make sure that the rock arm assembly is sitting nice and flat on the grooves of the head where they're supposed to sit. And you want to make sure that the actual rocker arm is sitting, the one rocker arm is sitting flat on the top of the valve. And then the other side of the rock arm assembly, that same rock arm assembly, is sitting properly or cuffing or hugging the end or the edge of the push rod. So basically that is supposed to hug it. So you'll feel by hand whether that rock arm assembly is hugging or is cupping the push rod end. And you'll know that it's firmly in position. If it's not, most likely than not, it will cause a misfire when you first start it up. So you just want to be aware of that. And you also want to make sure that when you tighten the bolts down, you're tightening them down so that the rock arm assembly is not, flexing, in other words, and it's opening the valves to the correct opening, and everything is basically sitting firmly and nicely without any where the bolts are basically getting caught up. So you just want to make sure everything is being tightened down nice and smoothly so everything goes well. Basically, the next thing is the valve cover gaskets. With the valve cover gasket, I've seen and I've also heard people where they take the valve cover itself after putting the valve cover gasket into the grooves, everything's been seated properly. They take the valve cover over to the car, and then when they install it, it starts to leak, whether it's leaking on top of the exhaust manifold or leaking down onto the catalytic converter or dripping in front of the car. underneath somewhere. Whatever the case is, you want to make sure when you take that valve cover itself that you take it to the car and you place it flat onto the surfaces on the head where they needs to sit in order for you to tighten them down. Sometimes what happens is people will take the valve cover, they go on an angle, they try to put one side down, and then when you put that one side down, it gets caught up on the inner edges of the head, and sometimes they'll roll the gasket either inwards or outwards depending on how you move the valve cover with your hands, and it'll start to leak. Very rarely have I seen the actual valve cover gaskets get cut, but most likely than not, they either come out of the valve cover themselves, they come out of the grooves in the valve cover and they start to leak, or they roll forward or outwards depending on how you position this valve cover, and they start to leak. So you'll just want to make a note of that and place that valve cover nice and flat. And you also want to tighten it down by hand and torque it down. Very important you torque the valve cover down. I've seen in cases where people will crank it down by hand, will tighten it down so much by hand, and eventually it causes the valve cover to leak, and people have a hard time figuring out why it's leaking. And that's because when you tighten it down, some of these valve covers are plastic, and if you tighten them down without actually putting a torque wrench on it, you may tighten it down so much where it forms a crack on the inside, and that can be misleading. You may not be able to find it. You think it's the actual valve cover gaskets. You end up getting new ones, and it doesn't fix that issue. So be very careful. Tighten everything down to it's nice and snug, and then use a torque wrench to make sure everything is torqued down to spec and you have no leaks and no issues. The next thing is I believe the intake manifold gaskets. When you're installing the intake manifold gaskets, you want to be just aware of which directions these valve cover, my mistake, not the valve, the intake manifold gaskets go. This way, when you take the intake manifold and you sit it on top of the head or on top of the block, you know that the holes on the intake manifold match the holes on the intake manifold gasket, and then those holes match the openings of the head. Yes, they match the openings or the holes on the head side. So you want to make sure everything is lining up perfectly. This way, when you, let's say, put oil for the first time in the car, when you fire it up, you don't have oil leaking out of those holes. You don't have a vacuum leak or anything of that nature. And you just want to make sure when you're installing the intake manifold gasket that the intake manifold gasket is obviously sitting right. You're not getting it caught up anywhere, and you're not leaning it against something on the head or on the car where it could break. For example, the PCV valve. Don't let the intake manifold sit on the timing cover. It could snap the PCV valve, and then you'll have to get a new one. And then the last thing I want to bring to your attention is the wiring. In my case, I didn't have that issue. In some other cars, you may run into that issue. So it's always a good idea to keep that in the back of your mind. In my case, all of the plugs matched the correct connectors on the vehicle. I was able to plug all the wiring to its proper location throughout the vehicle. In your case, you may have an issue where, for example, you have two plugs that are identical. You try to plug one of those two plugs into that connector, and you notice that when you fire up the car, after a few minutes, you notice you have a check engine light, you notice you have an open circuit, and you have a fault code for, let's say, a water temp sensor. So you want to make a note of that. If that you're going to have two identical plugs, you want to make sure that you know which of the two plugs goes for that connector and which one goes for the other one, so you're not running into an issue where your car is throwing a code and the car is not reading right. In other words, the sensors on the car are not reading right and the car is going crazy. So just make a note of that. And that's pretty much it, you guys. We didn't do anything too crazy in this video. It was a lot of work. Maybe to you guys it wasn't a lot of work. I did a lot of work. I feel happy with how everything went. Everything went well and everything went smoothly. And I believe in the next video or in the next following video, we should have the car back up and running. And we should be able to take it out for a ride. We're definitely going to be taking it out for a ride. And it's going to be a nice ride. And just to, check how the car rides and everything like that. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. And that's pretty much it. You know the vibes, guys. I'm out.